Hello and welcome to the Too Much Apparently podcast. If you're new here, this is a podcast for the deeply feeling, overthinking, emotionally overloaded humans who've been told they're too much apparently. And if you're back, thanks for choosing to sit with us again.
We're Alice and Carly, two therapists who are also just sensitive weirdos trying to make sense of life, healing, and our own brains. This isn't a professional advice podcast. It's more like the messy, honest conversations that happen when you finally feel safe enough to say what you're really thinking.
This space is for people like us, the ones who've been called too sensitive, too serious, too emotional, too intense, and have spent way too long believing that it's true.
Okay, on with the episode.
Today we're talking about being too nostalgic to let go.
This one's for anyone who's ever put on something they've already seen 5 times because it feels safe, or heard a song from 2008 and been transported to another time.
Or caught a smell, good cooking from somewhere, woodland in autumn, a specific perfume, and suddenly you're somewhere else entirely, somewhere that felt simpler.
We're talking about nostalgia, why some of us feel it so much more intensely than others, and what it's actually doing for us.
Because we don't think it's something to be embarrassed about or grow out of. We think it might actually be really helpful.
Let's get into it. How do you experience nostalgia?
That feels like a broad question, and I'm not quite sure where to start with it. I think what comes to mind first is just happy memories of my childhood, and specifically being on my bike and riding round and round the park, around a lake where I used to live. And I think there's something about the simplicity and the freedom and maybe the sense of adventure and possibility. Kind of words like that are popping into my head. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah. I would say I experience it similarly. The same kind of emotions, or the words that you said would probably be words that I would also find if I was thinking about it. And I would say that for me, nostalgia both feels happy and sad at the same time.
Yeah.
Because there was something there in the intro about where it said, somewhere that felt simpler. So there's also kind of a longing in that for how something felt or was in a way that you don't have now. So there's kind of a loss in it as well. And I have a friend actually that feels nostalgia as painful. And it's kind of why I wanted to ask the question that perhaps not everybody experiences nostalgia as the same, whereas I think I can experience it as happy and good and also painful, whereas for my friend, nostalgia just feels painful. But it kind of makes sense, doesn't it, as to why it might not always feel so lovely and comforting.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you were saying some more words there, another word that came up for me is safe. There's something about safety and comfort. And I think I never thought about it as painful actually, but I think that I also experience it that way. Yeah, that sometimes the longing can be so intense as to be painful.
Yes. Yeah. But I guess isn't anything good worth having also then painful if you don't have it anymore?
Right. Yeah.
Or if you've lost it or you don't have that experience anymore, it's where you can't separate good and bad.
Yeah.
Or love and loss. Nothing good comes without a kind of like risk attached to it, I suppose.
Yeah. Anything worth having. Yeah, it's painful to lose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, many of us can engage in nostalgic thinking or trying to revisit moments of the past, but also trying to bring those into the present as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something about how vivid that nostalgia feeling can be as well. Almost like in my mind, I can travel back to that place. Like in fact, I didn't intentionally do it then, but as I was saying the words, I could feel myself stood in my school hall, my primary school hall.
Okay.
And really just had a sense of what it felt like to be part of that school. Yeah, that it was a really lovely place and just feel it in so much detail. I feel like I can always feel the floor under my feet and, smell the smell. And and there is that longing for that it did just feel like straightforward and there was just one group of people, and sure, we didn't always get on all of the time, but it was a generally positive experience. I felt like I knew my place in the class. I think I was quite bossy.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I knew how I wanted things to be, and I needed them to be that way.
I think I
So,
was the same in primary school when I was younger.
Yeah. So, and I feel like most of the teachers were fairly nurturing, not always. And, there are some specific, very difficult memories that pop into my mind. But on the whole, it felt like a nurturing environment. And then when I went to secondary school was a massive shift. And I really felt like I lost my place and lost my way. And so, yeah, the longing for primary school and the comfort and the familiarity of that can be quite strong for me. Yeah.
I mean, I would say my story mirrors that in terms of the difference between primary school and secondary school. In fact, it would probably be a good episode idea to actually do one on that transition period, because it comes up commonly in terms of how difficult that transition period can be, and where people's experiences are sharply different from primary to secondary, and people's decline in their mental health sharply down. So, yeah, slight sidetrack there, but write that one down for the future.
Yeah, definitely.
With your description of being taken straight back to primary school, like even remembering what the floor underneath your feet feels like. Well, that's kind of the point of this episode, isn't it? That do sensitive, more deeply feeling people then also experience nostalgia in a more deeply feeling real way. And of course, there won't be a simple yes or no to that. There will be variance within our community, of course. But maybe there's something there about how vivid your mental imagery is. If you can revisit your memory in such a visceral way where you can feel the feel of the floor underneath your feet as you're thinking about it, I wonder what that does to feelings of nostalgia.
Yeah, I think that I'd never thought about it before I sat down to think about what I was going to say on this episode. But I think there's something about the combination of, the sensitivity to sensory things. Sensory, what's the word there?
Sensory stimuli?
Yeah, there we go. That is stimuli. Yeah, it feels very scientific and clinical, doesn't it? Sensory stuff. That's what I'll call it. Yeah. So the combination of that, the sensitivity to the sensory stuff, and the deeply feeling part, the intensity of feelings, like combined together, because it's not just imagery. Like almost I have to try and pull the images up. And in fact, a few months ago, I actually went onto my primary school's new website to look at their gallery to see if I could orient myself around their photos, which was harder than I thought, which was disappointing. But yeah, there's something about the different sensory elements and the depth of feeling about it. Like I can't imagine most people really think about their primary school very much. Certainly don't get lost in daydreams about it or try and map out a floor plan and navigate their way around it. There was something really comforting about that for me.
Yeah. It's so hard to know these things, isn't it? But yeah, there are people who just don't spend their time in their own head pondering things. And so, yeah, so absolutely. But then there are those of us who will try to recreate the floor plan of our primary school in our mind. But particularly the sensory element is important, just for memory in general. Often our memory is triggered by sights, sounds, smells in particular, places, people there. Even a feeling can take us back to a specific point in time. So there is the thinking side of us when we're actively choosing to think about something. And then there's the trigger. There's some sort of sensory stimuli that happens that takes us back to a specific point in time. And when that specific point in time is something that we feel warm and fuzzy and connected to, I guess they're the really nice feelings that can come along with feeling nostalgia.
Yeah. I was thinking of them as like a positive version of triggers. So rather than being triggered back to something negative or painful, of it being a similar mechanism of being triggered back, but to something happy. or pleasant?
Yes. Yeah. In researching for the episode, actually, research around nostalgia does show that when you engage in it, it increases feelings of meaning. It can boost mood and can enhance social connectedness. A lot of what was coming up was the positive benefits of engaging with nostalgia, which is interesting when I hadn't come across anything that connects with the painful side. But of course, there is loss within that. I also read this line, which I thought was really important. It said that nostalgia isn't just remembering, it's re experiencing emotion through memory, which is a nice distinction to highlight that nostalgia isn't just thinking about things that have happened to us in the past. It's kind of actively engaging with emotions that are connected to those past experiences in a positive way, which, to be honest, just sounds like exactly what you just said, that it's like positive triggers a re-experiencing of a positive emotion rather than the re-experiencing of a negative emotion or experience.
Yeah, and that really is it. It's not just it's not just a thought, it's more than that. It is a full body like reaction to it.
Do you know what? This is so interesting because I've always taken issue with, I can't remember who coined the phrase, but I've always taken issue with the opposite of triggers are glimmers.
Yeah.
Lots of people seem to like it. I don't really have an issue with it as a concept of engaging with nice, positive things.
Yeah.
And this is probably my literal autistic brain, but I was like, but it's not the opposite. Like glimmers, watching a bumblebee do its thing and feeling a sense of awe or wonder is not the opposite of re-experiencing a negative traumatic memory. So I've always taken issue with it because I'm like, well, that's not correct. It's not the opposite of a trigger.
I am exactly the same. I'm exactly the same. Yeah. And every time I see someone say that it's the opposite, I'm like, no, it isn't. Yeah. I think
but I've never been able to conceptualize truly because I've often sat with, but what is the opposite though, really? But I feel like you've just named it.
Right.
We
There we
found
go.
it. Finally. This has been bugging me for years.
I'll put my name to it. I think the original term was Deb Dana, who does work on polyvagal theory. I'm fairly sure glimmers is a word that she came up with. That's definitely where I first heard about it. But I don't think she says it's the opposite. I don't think that's how she describes it. I might be wrong. My understanding of the way that she describes it is that they are cues of safety. So they're anything that helps you feel a little bit safer in the moment. So,
which makes sense when you, makes sense when you put it like that.
Yeah.
Definitely. But not the opposite.
No. I suppose it could be an opposite in that a trigger pulls you back to somewhere and a glimmer anchors you in the present moment. There's an opposite-ish kind of element there. But I would say, to me, the opposite would be a re-experiencing of a positive
emotion. Yes. Yeah. A positive experience.
Yeah.
Which is nostalgia. There you go, guys. The opposite. The opposite of a trigger is nostalgia.
Yeah.
There we go. So how do we engage more then with nostalgia?
Oh, it's a good question, isn't it? Well, actually, I suppose slightly different to what you're asking me, but what popped into my head while we were talking there, it's probably another critical voice that I have in the back of my head, which feels like a fairly stern grandparent saying something like, oh, get your head out of the clouds, or, oh, the past's in the past, or something like that. So to answer your question, I feel like the first part of it is giving yourself permission to do it.
Right. Yeah.
Of like knowing that it's okay to do and that it's actually a useful thing to do and not just a waste of time.
Yes. And there's something in that about when we experience nostalgia, of course, it's in the past. But exactly like the example where the first thing that came into your head was you stood in primary school, a lot of it connects to childhood.
Yeah.
If I think of nostalgia, what comes to mind are things from childhood. I don't think of nostalgia as that thing that happened when I was 28.
No.
So I don't know if there's a rule for how far back it has to be for it to be nostalgic. I think it can be anything, to be honest. But it feels like it's directly connected with childhood. And childhood is then connected with childlike. So it's also how it might feel as an adult to engage with that. And this isn't something I ever did, but for a long time. So I remembered really fondly having one of those Mr. Frosties. Do you remember them?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for anyone who can't remember or isn't of my generation, so Mr. Frosty was a snowman that you could make snow cones out of. So it basically made crushed ice that you would put flavoring in and eat it. But it was all the rage when I was a kid, and I loved my Mr. Frosty. And yeah, at some point I was thinking about how lovely that was, and I had such fond memories of a Mr. Frosty. So I thought I might just buy one for myself as an adult and just have it. Like, why not? Why not re-experience that? But I remember at the time I never actually did it, because when I looked online, I think they were like nearly £50 or something.
Yeah.
And you could get like a today version of one, but it wasn't a Mr. Frosty. And it's like, no, it has to be the Mr. Frosty. And I thought, well, I don't think it's quite worth paying that just to re-experience it, probably for one day and be like, well, that was fun, and then never use it again. However, let's just say it hadn't have been that amount of money. I feel like that would have been a really cool thing to do, just to do. But how often or how many times would a person maybe not even have the idea to do that? Or even if they did, would feel silly or childish or a waste of time, and maybe not do a thing like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got lots of thoughts. The first one is that sometimes we relate over being working class therapists. And when you said about having a Mr. Frosty, I'm like, oh, you were an upper working class therapist. Because I never had a Mr. Frosty. So that was funny.
Was it an expensive toy of the day?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it is a common one that people longed for and didn't get.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah. that just made me laugh.
Oh, so I have Mr. Frosty privilege there.
Then. You do, yeah. 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 But actually I do buy things from my childhood. So I have very little things from my childhood for various reasons. And one of the most thoughtful gifts I ever got in my life was where I was part of an antenatal group, and someone had put up a picture of their baby playing with a plastic tea set that I used to have when I was a toddler. And I commented and was like, oh, I used to have that one. I loved it so much. Somebody in the group anonymously found that retro vintage tea set and sent it to me. How kind was that?
Oh, that is so nice. That's a lovely story.
Yeah. And it was a specific one as well. It was red and it had little yellow teddy bears on it. Yeah, just absolutely love it. So yeah, that was really lovely. But so when Jacqueline Wilson, I buy books that I used to have that I no longer own to almost like rebuild like a little childhood library of books that I used to love. I recently bought my secondary school backpack that I found on Vinted.
Amazing. Oh, I'm loving this conversation. That's so cool.
Just little things, like even though secondary school was not, it was a difficult time for me. I don't know, there was something about that backpack again. And I was just like, oh, I need to have it. And yeah, it was £11 on Vinted or something like Vinted. I was like, I need to have it. And I don't even use it, but I just need to have it.
Yeah, you just like having it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some of those things hold so much meaning, don't they? Oh, I'm going to see if I can retain my two threads of thought here. One of them that I just wanted to quickly mention, slight detour, but when I work with clients who have had difficult childhood experiences, and there is a conversation around maybe something that they never got to have, something that holds a certain amount of memory, or a thing they asked a parent for and they got something totally different that they didn't even like. There's been a few times actually that I've made the suggestion to go out and buy it for yourself as an adult. So I just wanted to name that because I think that is really powerful. And so if you have always wanted a Mr. Frosty and you never did get one, then, I don't know if they're still expensive, but maybe get yourself one. And what the other thought that I had is, so when we mentioned nostalgia, your mind took you to primary school. And when I first started to think of nostalgia, I thought of Mr. Frosty. And then when you were talking about the tea set, as you were talking, my mind was literally flashing me image after image after image of all the toys and things that I like to play with, or the possessions that I had as a child that meant so much to me, just from small childhood all the way up to my teenage years. But it was just a really interesting experience that nostalgia doesn't always have to be connected to a specific memory or experience, but an object, a thing, the school bag that you just felt compelled to buy yourself, my friend's pencil case that I loved, and all the toys that just brought me so much joy to play with. Yeah, it's just bringing back some really nice feelings. And at the same time, a desire to want to have them all.
Yeah. And I had to kind of think about what was going on for me, because my childhood was, in parts, it was good and positive and loving. And in parts, it was scary and dangerous. So I was really curious about, I have a really strong attachment to my childhood home that I moved. So I moved out when I was 15 of that home. But yeah, for years and years, I had a right move alert on it, because I was like, right, if it comes up for sale, I'm buying it back. Just so attached to it, even though there were lots of difficult memories in that house. So when I was thinking about this episode and thinking about what is it about that house or the things in that house, or all those things that kind of connect me back. And the conclusion that I kind of came to was that I understood it. Like I understood. So I think particularly as someone who is autistic and thinking about like social interactions or just systems in general, is like, I understood that world. I knew how it worked, even though it wasn't always positive or safe. I knew it.
Yeah.
I generally knew what to expect and how to act and what was expected of me and things like that. And I think that's part of the longing is I know how this works. And particularly with books, like books were a huge escape for me. I spent loads of time with my head in a book. So yeah, they're all like extra worlds of safety to escape to.
I think that's such a good point. And I found myself relating so much to a lot of the things that you said there. And particularly, with the first childhood home, I've always felt a strong pull towards that. My sister, especially, she has always said if it comes up for sale when she's older, that she was going to buy it. In fact, one time that it was up for sale, my mum and my sister went and viewed it.
Right.
Just to go and walk around. And they did actually confess while they were there. And I think the owner said, "Oh, would that have been your Spice Girls CD we found at the back of the fireplace?" And my mum and my sister told me, because I was like, "That would have been mine. That would have been mine." I said, "I don't know. How did it get at behind the back of a fireplace? I've no idea." But that was sweet to find out. But you're right. So much of it is around safety. I'd say reading for me was the same. You mentioned Jacqueline Wilson.
Yes.
And yeah, I loved those books. And I think toys stand out to me as well for that sense of safety, because I could get lost in creating my own worlds. And I was always quite happy to quietly play on my own in a corner.
Right.
I didn't like it when my sister tried to play with me, because she would wreck what I was doing. She'd make the Barbie or the Polly Pocket do what was not supposed to happen or intended. So I'd get annoyed and just want to play by myself. But yeah, even now, just thinking about the types of toys that I love to play with, I've always had issues with Polly Pockets as well, being as big as they are now. Like, no, they're supposed to be teeny tiny.
Yeah. Oh, there's just so much, isn't there? And I feel like I'm like, just as we're talking about it all, I just feel like I'm immersed in the loveliness of times gone by, which is funny because when I was in those times, I couldn't wait to be a grown up. I guess that's always how it goes, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess when you consider that more sensitive, deep feeling people, we do process experiences much more deeply than other people. We can have a stronger emotional memory. So my memory isn't actually very good, but my emotional memory, how I felt at certain times or certain situations, is very good. If I'm going to connect to anything, it's going to be the emotion rather than the actual memory in the event. And we're so aware of subtleties. We're so aware of the details. And if we are aware of that and retain that information more, I think it's perhaps more likely that we might engage more in or experience nostalgia more intensely.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you're saying that, I'm just thinking about how do we know whether it's whether it's a good thing for us or not, because we kind of hinted to that in the intro, that we think it's not necessarily a bad thing, that it can be a helpful thing. So I wonder what your thoughts are about, when is it good? When is it not so good?
I kind of want to say, is it ever not so good? Because I could be wrong here, but when I think about nostalgia, I kind of think of it as a short-lived experience, different from re-experiencing past experiences, ruminating on the past, living in the past. I feel there are lots of scenarios where being in the past could not be a great experience. But I don't know if nostalgia feels different to that. I don't know if that feels more like a short-lived experience. I kind of want to question, could that ever be bad? What do you think?
I guess there's a couple of things. So one is, I kind of think similarly to the episode that we did on overthinking, which was right back at the start of all these episodes, around what's the impact that it's having on your life now. So I think, because I can spend a lot of time, like whenever it was that I was trying to map out my primary school in my mind, I spent a decent amount of time trying to, figure it out and trying to build the image up in my mind. So I think there is something about, what impact is it having on our lives now? Is it getting in the way of living our lives now and things like that?
Can I just ask there, just to interject, when you were going down the road of looking at your primary school photos, when you were trying to map it out, at that moment in time, did that feel like nostalgia?
It feels, yes, it feels tricky. I feel like parts of me are saying yes and parts of me are saying no. I think I'm not sure whether I was in the nostalgia feeling or chasing the nostalgia feeling by searching. Does that make sense? And I think a bit of both. Maybe I had some and was chasing more.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's interesting to think about if we're talking about, can nostalgia itself be a problem versus can something be born out of the nostalgia that could become a problem, or is it nostalgia itself? Yeah. What was the other thing you were going to say?
Then the other thing that I think about is the link between, and this really surprised me, the link between nostalgia and fascism.
Say more. Oh, actually, no, I can see that now. I needed a moment to process, but no, I can see that actually.
Yeah, that your reaction was kind of mirrored mine exactly. The face that you pulled there, which I think we should leave in for the watchers on YouTube.
Do.
I guess it is the illusion of a simpler time, and
wanting to get back to that again.
And that things were better at some point in the past, and and that there's somewhere to get back to. There's a really good article about this that I'll try and remember to dig out and put in the show notes, that explains why there was no better time, that every generation has always gone, oh, let's go back. But something about, looking back through rose-tinted glasses, which I was going to say, maybe that's more of an issue when it becomes like on the social level rather than the individual level. But I guess they're inseparable, really, that in order for it to become a social problem, enough people need to be experiencing it on an individual level.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which feels a bit deep and depressing for an episode that feels quite warm and cozy, but it feels important to mention it. I was at a conference at the weekend and they brought up the idea that some people still think that therapy is not political, which for me, it's like, no, it absolutely is. So it feels important to put it in, even if it does feel a bit clunky in a otherwise soft episode. Yeah.
Well, no, it's well, maybe that can be the warning of this episode. If you engage too much in nostalgia, you might just be a fascist.
Wow.
I didn't know where else to take that, so there we go.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting though, actually, because for me, it's like the way it runs in my head is life was simpler back then, and we can get back to something that's simpler and easier for everybody and a nicer place for everybody to live in. Mm-hmm. And I'm aware that, for example, gay rights have moved on. 80s, 90s for gay people, no, not the best of times, really not. But yeah, for me, there's something about let's go back to making life better for everybody. Whereas, yeah, I think if you're a fascist, it's let's go back to this time where everybody was white.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. It's interesting that fascism and nostalgia have been linked in that way, because I think of nostalgia, as specific points in time. And then you could bring that together as a collective and say, oh, let's go back to that. But as I say, you're usually reflecting on your childhood. So actually, it was a simpler time because you were a child.
Right.
Right. So I still feel like those two things don't really correlate in my mind, because it was a simpler time because you didn't have bills to pay. You weren't aware of the problems of the world. You were still innocent and naive, and you didn't have to worry about where your next meal is going to come from. Well, hopefully, obviously, that's the idea.
Yeah.
So, yeah, of course, it was a simpler time. Of course, you're going to look back with fondness, because the whole point of being a child is you're taken care of.
Yeah.
Not supposed to have that much to worry about, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder how much of nostalgia is about the feeling of being cared for in some way, or a feeling safe in some way.
Yeah. I'm just still laughing in my head about how we can put in a lighter, nice episode and still somehow arrive at fascism and just
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. But I am intrigued about how we now reroute the podcast back to the light and fluffy after the nostalgia.
We're on episode 37 now, so people should definitely already know what they've signed up for with these episodes as to where they can go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But actually, of course, it has to be about safety because, well, one of the things that you mentioned about your childhood home is that even though your childhood home doesn't connect you to loads of happy memories, and that's how it was all of the time, you're still drawn to it. And familiarity and predictability do create feelings of safety. So it would make sense that the things that we feel nostalgic for are connected to safety, because playing with the same toy X amount of times is predictable, it's familiar, it's yours, it's safe. So, yeah, thinking about how much does nostalgia connect to feeling cared for and feeling safe is, that's an interesting thing to think about.
It is. And then as I asked the question, what popped into my head was a memory of me driving down the road as I was going through getting divorced and like playing, I guess, angry and quite emotional music at full volume. And I think there's even a nostalgia about that.
Right.
Well, maybe there is a feeling of safety even in that, even though it was an incredibly sad time. The decisions that I made that led to that were about being safer, were about being more myself, were about being more authentic. They were, even though it was a very scary, confusing, tragic time, I think I look back on it now as like, yeah, good for you. Good for you. What a huge decision to make. And that was the right decision. That was absolutely the right decision to make. And as I'm belting these songs out in the car, I suppose I'm connected to my sense of power.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a nice feeling. Yeah. As you said that, I was thinking how mostly what we've said connects to childhood. I think because you were talking about driving, that immediately connected me to when I had a convertible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
definitely, sorry, but definitely upper working class here.
Well, I was a student nurse at the time, and I paid for it myself. It wasn't a fancy convertible. No, it was nice. I'm taking that back. I loved it. It was nice. It was a little Persia. It was really nice. I just loved it because I'd always wanted one. And I just decided I don't care that it's not very practical. The back seats were literally teeny tiny. But I just have a memory again of it being a really sunny day. Top was down. I think I had an iced coffee in my hand and really summery music playing. I think maybe my outfit was on point or something. Like I felt good in myself as well. Oh, and it was just such a lovely feeling. And this was a number of years ago now, but when I see people with the top down, part of me goes, should I get a convertible again? But really, it's because I want that feeling rather than they're not actually the most practical of cars. But it's because I remember that feeling and it's like, oh, should I get one again? I'd like that feeling again.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm feeling a bit bad now for teasing you about being an upper working class therapist. Good for you.
Thank you.
Good for you.
I feel more like going in, defense. I almost want to be like, no, I wasn't. No, I wasn't.
You worked hard for that convertible. Good for you.
Worked hard for that convertible. I did.
Yeah.
I did. Loved it so much. With what you were talking about and with what I mentioned there about almost wanting to get a convertible again to re-experience that feeling. And you were mentioning before about potentially chasing a feeling related to nostalgia. There are other types of nostalgia that we can engage in on a day-to-day basis. And it's something that I engage in a lot. And that is rewatching television shows again and again, certain films again and again, certain albums from childhood again and again. Even if now as an adult, I'm like, actually, this is really poorly made music. I still love it and still listen to the whole album. Yeah, and that's not something that everybody, I don't think that's a universal experience, but it certainly seems to be common in the neurodivergent community of people talking about how much they have rewatched something or how often they listen to an album over and over.
Yeah, which is just instantly making me think of classic Coronation Street and classic Emmerdale.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
I
feel like they should start sponsoring us.
Yeah, they should, shouldn't they? Give them enough promo, don't I? I found it a bit hard actually to think about what is it that I rewatch, but I don't think I actually watched that much as a kid. Right. I think I just read so much. Yeah, I'm like trying to think of like specific films or anything like that. I think the biggest one that comes to mind is Practical Magic, which the second one is coming out later this year. So excited for that.
Yes. Yeah. Same. I loved Practical Magic. It used to scare me and I liked it too.
Yeah. But rewatching things mainly makes me think about my sister, who was obsessed with Super Ted. And I think there was a Peter Pan phase. And then there was a Backdraft phase. I don't know if anyone's heard of Backdraft. It was a film about firemen. I can feel her saying it's about more than firemen. But yeah, she would constantly rewatch things even back then. I don't know if she still watches Super Ted now. Oh, but what that's popped into my head is when I moved house. So when I moved here, which is nearly 3 years ago now, can you believe?
Wow.
Around the stress of moving day, so kind of leading up towards moving day, I had an overwhelming urge to watch Postman Pat, and not the modern version that they make with computers, but the original, the classic version, classic Postman Pat. It was so soothing. Oh. Like, again, I can feel in my body of like, oh yeah, just Postman Pat trundling around, delivering his little parcels. It was strange because I wasn't into that much as a kid, but yeah, it was just a little coping mechanism that got me through the move.
Oh, I'm just hearing the theme tune. But again, like nostalgia, connected to theme tunes that you've listened to again and again as a child.
Yeah.
It's immediately there in your head and you can hear it. But yeah, that's really sweet. There's lots of things that I've watched again and again because I also read a lot, but I'm hesitant to say this now because you've been declassing me all episode.
Go on, what have you been reading?
I was going to say, so when we got cable. Do you know what? I actually think I just had a dad that was irresponsible with money, to be totally honest with you.
We did have cable, but I think we were I don't think we got it till I was about 11. I remember going round to my best friend's house all the time to watch The Box, the music channel, The Box.
Yeah.
I thought it was so cool that she could watch all the music videos.
All the music videos. Yeah. I don't remember The Box. I remember MTV.
Yeah.
I think I only would have been maybe 9 or 10. There was only one other friend on my street that had it. And at school, not many people had it. So a lot of people couldn't talk to me about the shows that I was watching. But because of that, it meant I had access to way more TV programs than what there was with just the few terrestrial channels. So it's kind of opened yourself up to be able to watch loads of shows. And of course, on things like Nickelodeon, you get loads of reruns. So you would end up watching the same thing over and over again, just through reruns. There was no facility at that time to record. Feel like I'm talking about, in my day. And then, of course, when the technology came in to record, I think I would fill a lot of the box's memory by wanting to just record all of my favorite shows and rewatch them. But anyway, I still do that now. There are certain shows that I have seen many times.
What are your shows?
The Big Bang Theory, Modern Family, Friends. As a teenager, I used to watch a lot of SpongeBob. Right. So I just find a lot of comfort in hearing Patrick's voice from SpongeBob SquarePants. I've rewatched Band of Brothers a lot. That's not necessarily an easy watch, but it's one I've seen many times. It's one of my all-time favorite TV shows. New Girl is another one. Yeah, and there's a couple more. But ultimately, I tend to find that I rewatch shows during difficult times when I'm stressed and when I'm overwhelmed, which of course makes sense because it's seeking that familiarity, not being able to cope with something new, not coping with the uncertainty of a show, or when there's dark or difficult themes, that actually I just go for something that's really light, easy, familiar, nice to watch. It does mean that I've ended up seeing things over and over. Although I quite like it because my partner does the same. So we give each other lots of high fives and coolness points when one of us quotes something and the other one gets it or follows on from the line, and we're like, yeah, we're so cool. Or if the other one doesn't, then we're like, it's a big deal. It's outrage.
Yeah. I guess I was trying to hunt around for things that I watched when I was much younger. And when I try and remember, my sister's things come more into my head than mine. Right. Maybe she had more control of the remote than me. But yeah, kind of more recent shows I do rewatch. So I will rewatch Gilmore Girls. Yes. Anne with an E is another one that I like to rewatch.
I love that. That's not a rewatcher, but I loved that series.
Yeah. And Normal People as well, which I could watch that one over and over non-stop, I think. Yeah, there are probably others in there, but they're the main three that come to mind. And especially Normal People. Yeah, there's really something about that show that I love. I love it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes as well, I've done rewatches. So the shows that I mentioned are ones that I will watch again and again. But also at the same time, I have rewatched shows that I knew I loved as a teenager. And so I'm older than my partner, so we don't always share in the same nostalgia, annoyingly. So the way I solve that is by forcing him to watch things that I watched as a child. So, of course, then we can experience it, which means, thankfully, he's a very agreeable person. He will tend to watch most things that I say. So quite recently, we watched Ugly Betty. I used to love that show. Right now, we're doing One Tree Hill, which is a bit of a marathon because there's 9 series. And it's back in the days when you had 24-hour-long episodes per series. Yeah. It's not like that anymore, is it? Can you imagine? Yeah. So rewatching that at the moment, to be honest, with a level of horror that, oh my God, some of the messages and the way things were in the shows that we watched growing up is quite concerning. But anyway, different point for a different time. But anyway. So sometimes it's nice to rewatch a show that you watched as a child, even if you watched it once, because it's surprising how much you remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I went off on a thing of what you were saying wasn't really a side point. It was basically what we were saying before, that these things that are cozy and a better time and think are simpler or whatever. I guess what I'm getting from it is there's some problematic messages in there that we just didn't even notice back then. That's kind of what I was saying before.
Yeah.
So as I said, I like to rewatch classic Coronation Street and Emmerdale. One of the things that I really love is that their homes just look so normal. And actually, me and my husband started rewatching The Royal Family the other day. And yeah, it's just so normal. People's homes are not impeccably styled like they are these days. And you can tell, I think sometimes now, because the actors and actresses, they've had their teeth whitened and straightened and they've got their hair perfectly done, and they've got nails and all the things that I never would have been able to afford when I was younger. Nobody on my street would have been able to afford that kind of thing. So yeah, it feels like we've kind of lost something there. There's something about the normality, the mismatch, mismatching mugs and yeah, I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah, I do see what you're saying. Well, it sounds like there was more of a realness to programs when they were made then. And
Yeah.
well, the set design, yeah, the way in which the sets were designed, but also the way in which the actors were presented. Whereas there's kind of shows are quite glammed up, is kind of what I hear you saying, even when they don't have to be, given what they're about or the subject matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even when you watch shows like Murder Mysteries or a kind of a whodunit, they're often set in like these amazing landscapes with grand design type house architecture. And
True.
yeah, it's not really something I've thought about, but I think you're right. There is a very polished aesthetic, both to sets and the people themselves in a lot of things now.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was a bit raw and messier.
Yeah. But yeah, there's just something about the mismatch that it's supposed to be like, this is a working class show. This is the people work in factories. They don't have a lot of money. So yeah, I just get a bit irritated when that's not reflected in the set design. I think that's important. But yeah, there's just something about that, the realness of it, the down to earthness, the imperfection of it. Because I feel like we get that, and we've talked about that on other episodes about what we get pumped through social media about what perfect houses look like and people living perfect lives and things like that. So I like a mismatched mug.
Yeah, but that's an interesting reflection, actually, because when we're thinking about how our lives are now or future projecting into the near future, we're often comparing against this ideal, like aesthetic now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas actually, when we connect with nostalgia, we're not connecting back to something that was ideal or perfect.
No.
I'm bringing it back to your house again, that actually contains some really unhappy times and memories, and yet you still feel a pull towards it. So nostalgia in and of itself is something that can feel really nice to experience. There's a sense of loss because that's come and gone and you don't have it anymore. Research shows that it can be really beneficial to engage in nostalgia. And yet we've just identified that nostalgia is about the imperfect, the not ideal, the times when something might have felt good, but there might have been messy things going on at the same time. And yeah, that wasn't something that I expected. That's interesting to kind of draw that together.
Yeah, I think that is something about nostalgia for me, that it isn't this endless striving for a perfect life that we're never going to have, and that was never even expected. Like, I often think about this as a parent and like, what were the expectations that were placed on my mum compared to the expectations that are placed on me now? And in the 80s it was like, keep your kid alive, feed him, maybe, or teach them how to cook things for themselves. Yeah, but now it's relentless. It's, there's so many areas that we're expected to understand and do perfectly. Yeah, that there is an ease. And obviously there is that, where I'm going back to is times where I didn't have responsibilities. And I think I'm sure there's some research that says that when anybody is asked about the best time in their lives, they usually pick early adulthood. So when they've got the freedoms of an adult, but without tons of responsibility, which just feels obvious, doesn't it?
You're right. Yes. Yeah.
I suppose I was thinking a little bit then about the embarrassment or shame that can come with nostalgic things. And I suppose, so if I just pick normal people, which is it's not an old thing, I think it came out in 2020 or something like that. But when we share things that we really care about or that we're nostalgic for, sometimes we can give away things about ourselves that we might not want to reveal.
Yeah.
It was a Paramore album that I was listening to, belting the songs out, driving down the road when I was getting divorced.
Which song?
Fences is the one that comes first into my head. Misery Business. My Heart is another one. Yeah, just they've come back on my Spotify DJ recently, which has just been really nice.
Yes.
But yeah, sometimes I think that they can be tender things to share with people. I don't necessarily get this because I'm happy to share things about myself. I don't really mind. But I know that for other people, it can be a difficult thing. Like for, so with normal people, for me, a big part of the attraction is Marianne. Her character is me, not like to school, awkward, like contrarian, not liking herself very much, putting up with stuff that is painful, to be accepted, to feel loved, playing games in relationships, that kind of thing, not saying what you mean and missing out on stuff, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think there can be some of that sometimes. And it felt a bit silly saying when I moved house, I wanted to watch Postman Pat. Like, I'm not 3 years old. I was nearly 40, but I don't know. I suppose I just don't question it. But I can imagine that for some people that they find that hard, or that they would find it weird or embarrassing to share some of these things with people because they can attach to, more difficult things.
I definitely agree with that, because so when we're recording this podcast, I am aware that there are people listening to it, or going to be listening to it. But of course, it's also a conversation between you and I. So there are lots of things that I will quite happily say with you that I might not say to other people, or that I might not say in other spaces, which sounds strange considering it's then put out publicly. But there's an ease and there's a freedom when I talk here where I just find myself saying things. So even when you asked me what TV shows I rewatch and I started to list them off, I was listing them off. But there was kind of like an awareness in the back of my mind of, oh, or do you get judged for the fact that you rewatch these shows? And it was quiet. It didn't stop me from saying them, but it was there because I know it's going to be listened to. But in other scenarios, I kind of wouldn't be so open as what I am here with you and with lovely listeners who listen along to our podcast. Yeah, where I just feel able to say some of those things. So it's the same, like when you were mentioning Postman Pat, like to me, it's like, yeah, cool. Like, why would you not? That sounds like a great idea. Why would you not? But I can absolutely see why in some situations we might be incredibly self-conscious or not say that for fear of what somebody's going to say or think, which here with you seems ridiculous. Like, why is that even anything to be worried about saying? But in real life, I mean, this is real life, but you know what I mean? It's not that straightforward. So I can absolutely see why there would be shame or fear of judgment or embarrassment about some of these things, which is for me a real shame as to why that might then stop us maybe re-experiencing that in the now, or re-engaging with that thing, buying the Mr. Frosty, watching the Postman Pat, visiting the areas that you used to play as a child or something. Yeah, there can just be lots of really nice stuff there if we were able to just give ourselves more permission to let ourselves go there and experience that.
Yeah. Yeah. When you said about going back to places where you used to play, I took my children back to the little play park that was in the middle of my road used to go round in like a circle with a park in the middle. And it just felt so special. It almost felt like stitching something back together, almost like I'd become separated from my childhood, and going back with my kids felt like stitching it back together. And same with the kind of the floor plan with my school, felt like reintegrating parts of my child self that had become separate. It felt like a really good thing to do. Yeah, and so it's just made me think of, I've seen something going around on social media recently that I really love, which is something like midlife is about learning to become your teenage self again and loving her this time. It's something like that.
Right,
and I'm just like, I love that. I just feel like that is, just let ourselves love what we love, and who cares if it's dorky or embarrassing or cringe. Like, I think the older I get, the more I'm embracing the dorky, cringy parts of me.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And if indulging in some nostalgia helps you in any way at all, go for it. Of all the different coping mechanisms that people use, this one feels like a great one.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that felt like a lovely way to round up the episode.
Yeah.
If you've ever felt slightly embarrassed by how much a song or a smell or a show still gets to you,
Maybe that's not a sign you're stuck. Maybe it's a sign that you feel things fully and that some things were genuinely worth feeling.
you're allowed your comfort rewatches. You're allowed the playlist that belongs to a chapter of your life. You're allowed to miss things, even complicated things, even things that weren't perfect. And that's not a weakness, that's having a self.
Next time, we're talking about being too invalidated to trust myself. It's the chronic invalidation episode, all about what happens when you've been told in 100 small ways that your feelings are wrong and you eventually start to believe it.
But for now, we'll leave you with this. What's one thing you're nostalgic for that you felt slightly silly about? What would it feel like to let yourself have it without the apology?
That's all from us today. If this episode made you feel a bit less alone, the best way to help us reach more people is to subscribe, rate the podcast, and follow Too Much Apparently on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Those simple clicks help other sensitive humans find us when they need it most. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon.